Have you ever wanted someone to just explain to you the lore of Dragon Age like you're 5? Probably not, but I'm gonna do it anyways because I want to. Okay, this is my autistic special interest, and I'm gonna make it everyone's problem. Lesson number 1, the Darkspawn. What are the Darkspawn? Where do they come from? What do they do? Why do they do it? All of it will be addressed in some way, if I remember. Okay, I've done my research. This is just coming from a brain that has been obsessed with this franchise since I was 12. You know what I mean? So a lot of it is gonna come from the top of my head, and I will be ignoring everything that came after Origins. That doesn't exist for me. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't speak to me as a person and as a fan of Dragon Age. So I'm just gonna, for my sake, for my peace of mind, I'm just gonna pretend that it never happened. So, warning, this is outdated lore, but for me is the only lore. And if it isn't for you, don't even bother in the comments to be like, well, actually, now we know. No, we don't. No, we do not. We don't know anything aside from what I tell you in this video. What I say is the truth. Nothing else matters. With all of that addressed and out of the way, let's talk about Darkspawn. Darkspawn are these sometimes humanoid, tainted creatures that live in the cave systems called the Deep Roads in Thedas. Thedas is the continent in which Dragon Age is based on. They are considered to be soulless. They're just monstrous. They just have this kind of zombie need to just spread the corruption and feed and take prey back into the caves, the Deep Roads, and continue the process of making more Darkspawn and so on and so forth. They are plague bearers in a way, like rats. If you get hit by a Darkspawn and their blood gets into your bloodstream, you're done for. You have to be put down like a dog. Otherwise, you will not become a Darkspawn. Darkspawn have a very specific way of being bred as we see them in the game. They're not undead. They're very much all of them alive. If you kill them, they stay dead and they do not rise from the dead. But if you get infected, you will just lose your mind and kind of become part of the hive mind that they all belong to. The Taint, I am gonna be calling it Taint throughout the entire video because the Taint is the corruption and Blight is the organized movement the Darkspawn then become part of once an Archdemon rises, okay? They're completely different, and just because Veilguard said the Blight with the lowercase b and the Blight with the uppercase b are different doesn't mean that I have to fucking accept it, okay? I don't accept anything that Veilguard tells me to accept, so shut up. Don't say shit. Anyways, Darkspawn, they come in all shapes and forms. There's a lot of, DEI in the Darkspawn. A lot of, devour, exterminate, and infect. Darkspawn all look different depending on what kind of broodmother they came from. But in canon lore, they're most often depicted as having pale flesh and black ichor just running down all orifices. They do not bleed blood, they bleed taint. They just bleed black liquid. The Darkspawn are also capable of rapid healing. They can regenerate like limbs and body parts. And they will not die from injuries that would down any other person. They are not a fan of light. And that makes sense because they live in caves. They live underground. So fire is a very good deterrent against Darkspawn. It will not kill them. That doesn't mean that they are weak to fire. They just not like it. And they will be able to see you in the dark, which makes them extremely fucking terrifying. According to the canonical, and in my opinion, the only version worth a damn, and that's coming from the Chantry. The Chantry is the church of Thedas. They are the main religion. And in their version of how the Darkspawn came to be, it is said that the first Darkspawn came because these arrogant mage lords called the Magister Sideral from the old Tevinter, it's basically just ancient Rome, they breached the Golden City where the Maker, the god of this universe, lived, and they were not supposed to be there. No one was supposed to physically enter the heavens and least of all step foot in the house of God, the golden city of the Maker. But they did, and the Maker cast him out and turned his back on humanity as a whole, and these Magisters, they became the first Darkspawn. And with them, the taint spread, and the Blights were unleashed upon the world of Thedas. The Taint propagated, turning more humans and dwarves and Qunari and elves into Darkspawn, and that's how the Darkspawn established. Other cultures in Thedas do not believe this version. For example, the dwarves, they believe that the Darkspawn were in the deep roads. They were in the caves, and maybe because they started digging and disturbing the ground to create cities, they woke them up from their slumber and they unleashed the Darkspawn upon the world. In Tales of the Dalish are elves that refuse to blend and merge into human societies, so they stay at the outskirts of civilization in their forest, trying to keep their culture and history alive as much as possible. And in one of their tales, in one of their mythos, the goddess of the hunt, Androil, she went to the Void, this realm made of darkness and shadows, to hunt the Forgotten Ones. The Forgotten Ones were supposed to be kind of like the antithesis of the Evanuris, the ancient gods, kind of like their evil counterparts. And Andriel went to the Void to hunt them. And in her hunt, she found this piece of darkness in the Void, and she made an armor made of the Void itself, of this darkness, and she crafted weapons out of it, and it drove her mad. And when she returned, the plague and disease and corruption that these armor and weapons bled corrupted the lands and the animals and the waters. And that's how the Dalish believe that the taint was first spread into the mortal world. Any of these versions is so much more interesting than whatever the fuck Velgard sprung upon us, and I will take any of them. The Darkspawn, all of them, are born male. They do not reproduce naturally, they do not have sex with one another, and they are not born through traditional means. And you will see what I'm talking about. They are born from Broodmothers. Broodmothers are Darkspawn, the only female Darkspawn, and they are created when a Darkspawn grabs from a battlefield a female soldier, be it human, be it dwarf, be it Qunari, and they are taken to the deep roads where they are fed taint, and they are force-fed Darkspawn tissue. And then, during a very gruesome process, they mutate into a horrific and grotesque Broodmother. They're these huge Darkspawn with multiple sets of tits. They're humongous, they have tentacles, and their whole purpose is to make more Darkspawn. Depending on the race of the Broodmother, the race she was before she became a Broodmother, that will determine what kind of Darkspawn she gives birth to. So a human Broodmother will give birth to Hurlocks. A dwarf Broodmother will be giving birth to Genlocks. An elf Broodmother will be giving birth to Shrieks. And a Qunari Broodmother will be giving birth to Ogres. A Broodmother will have very large litters, dozens at a time, maybe more, and over their lifespan, they can breed over 1,000 of new Darkspawn. This was removed in Velgard. They took out the Broodmothers because they were too upsetting, but they're supposed to be upsetting. I will see if I can find it, but I remember playing the game when I was a wee child and being in the deep roads, and you come across a dwarf that has been infected with Darkspawn flesh and Darkspawn blood in the taint, and she is in the process of becoming a Broodmother, and she, in her madness, recites to you a poem. And this poem, decades later, has stuck with me. If I can find it, I will play it out for you so you can share my horror. The horror that 12, 13-year-old Ara first felt when she heard this.
First day they come and catch everyone. Second day, they beat us and eat some from meat. Third day, the men are all gnawed on again. Fourth day, we wait and fear for our fate. Fifth day they return, and it's another girl's turn. Sixth day, her screams we hear in our dreams. Seventh day, she grew as in her mouth they spew. Eighth day, we hate it as she is violated. Ninth day, she grins and devours her kin. Now she does feast, as she's become the beast.
Darkspawn live underground, and by living, I mean they just kind of exist underground. They prowl and stalk the deep roads, and the deep roads again are this like vast subterranean network that runs all underneath Thedas. And what they do basically all day is just look for an old god. An old god is a sleeping dragon. Basically, they're very old, very powerful, very ancient dragons that used to be worshipped in Tevinter, the land where all the evil mages are from. And the Darkspawn will hunt for these sleeping old gods, and they will taint them and turn them into archdemons. An archdemon is just a corrupted dragon god that is turned into a monster, and under the archdemon's command, it's when the Darkspawn can go to the surface as a horde, as an army. If they don't have an archdemon to command them, they will be seen on the surface, but it's always in small pockets, and they will not be organized. With an archdemon behind them, they will be organized, and they are a force to be reckoned with. And that's when the Blight, capital B, begins. The Darkspawn have different types and roles, especially during Blights. The Ogres, the ones that are born from Kunari Broodmothers, they are the tanks of the army. They are enormous. They are the front lines of the army, of the horde, and they will fuck you up. The Hurlocks and Genlocks are more common. They are the ones born from dwarves and humans, and they're just infantry, foot soldiers. They're capable of using bows and shields and swords, and they're just there for you to get tired of fighting them, so another Darkspawn can cut you down. There are magic users in the Darkspawn. They're called emissaries, and they harness a tainted version of magic, and they are known for being more smart and for coordinated ambushes against humans and whatever they can find, really. And then there's the alphas, the elite Darkspawn, if you will, and they are much stronger than a normal Darkspawn and sometimes more intelligent, and they will act as occasional leaders if there's not an archdemon present. The Darkspawn act like a hive mind when they're under an archdemon's command, and that will make them capable of much more advanced coordinated attacks and strategic raids, and to corrupt the land and the people much faster. This doesn't mean that when there's not an archdemon that they're not dangerous. They don't slumber in the deep roads when there's not a blight going on. They will still do incursions into the surface, and they're still capable of, even in much smaller numbers, to sprung a raid or an incursion and to spread the corruption. That's all they're born to do, to spread the taint into the surface and to corrupt all they touch. As I mentioned earlier, when an archdemon rises, it signals a blight. A blight is a full-scale invasion. The surface world will fall into bloodshed, corruption, and decay. The land will be corrupt, which means you cannot grow anything on it. The water will be corrupt, which means you cannot drink it. The taint spreads everywhere. The survivors will be captured to either become broodmothers or to feed the broodmothers. Cities will fall and societies will collapse. And it is cyclical. There have been multiple blights over millennia in the history of Thedas. There's been 5 so far. And there's no really a tell on when a blight is gonna happen. From the first blight to the 5th, being the last one, they went from having centuries of nothing happening in between to decades. And while they have also become shorter, there's been blights that have spanned a century to be able to defeat. With knowledge, blights have been able to be defeated and contained faster, but their devastation is still unreal. When a blight ends, the Darkspawn do not go away. This is not something you just defeat once and they disappear and the world heals. No, when an archdemon is slain by a Grey Warden, the Darkspawn will retreat underground, where they will stay until they find the next archdemon to corrupt, and then the blight will continue anew. That means that cultures and societies that live underground, like the dwarves, have to deal with the Darkspawn 24/7, 365, all the time. There's no recess. There's no taking a little break between Blight and Blight for the dwarves. They're constantly fighting Darkspawn all the time. Darkspawn are mostly mindless unless they're underneath the command of an archdemon. But in some rare cases, they are capable of showing sapience, speech, and even memory. In Awakening, you meet the Architect. The Architect is one of those magisters that breached into the golden city of the Maker, and they were cast out by God into the mortal world, twisted and corrupted, then becoming the first of the Darkspawn. And this Architect, this Magister, is by all means a thinking and plotting Darkspawn capable of intelligence. There is also a sentient Broodmother called the Mother in Awakening, and she is capable of birthing new Darkspawn called the Children. This shows that Darkspawn are not purely mindless. They're not just a mindless plague. In some circumstances, if they're corrupted by taint that has been altered by magic, they can retain fragments of self. I have mentioned the Grey Wardens in multiple instances now, and if you're new to Dragon Age and to the setting, you probably don't know anything about the Grey Wardens, and I will be making an entire video just devoted to them. But the Grey Wardens are essentially there and were created to fight Blights. They are an elite order whose purpose is just to fight the Darkspawn, and if an archdemon appears, to kill it, so the Blight is ended. Becoming a Grey Warden involves going through the joining, and the joining is a very secretive ritual that involves drinking Darkspawn blood. This gives the Grey Wardens a connection to the taint and a connection to the archdemon itself. It allows them to sense the Darkspawn, to survive the taint longer in case that they're like infected by tainted blood. That will not kill them, that will not corrupt them as it would other people. But it also marks them with corruption, and it will kill them very quickly. A Grey Warden that maybe joins in their late 20s and 30s will most likely not make it into their late 40s. Before then, the taint will start to take over, and they will start to hear this song, this calling as they call it, in their brains, willing them to go into the deep roads to join the Darkspawn horde. And when this happens, when a Grey Warden starts hearing the calling, what they will often do is to take nothing with them into the deep roads, but maybe a sword or whatever weapon of their choosing, and they will go down fighting Darkspawn because they would rather die than become one of them. Grey Wardens exist to ensure every Blight has some hope, but the cost is always very steep. And that has been the lore behind my beloved Darkspawn. The true Darkspawn, the OG, not whatever spirit Halloween bullshit Velgar fucking gave us. These are the Darkspawn I grew up with. These are the Darkspawn that scared me as a preteen. The ones that had me looking over my shoulder, had me jumping every time that I heard like a growl in the distance. These were the ones where I had to pause the game and think it through of how I was gonna approach the encounter, because if there was more than one ogre, I knew I was fucked. If there was an ogre and an emissary, I knew I was fucked. If there was more than 2 Darkspawn, I knew I was fucked. And that was the beauty of it all. I remember the entire section of the Deep Roads and going from Dwarven Kingdom to Darkspawn territory, and just the tone shift of the game, of a game that is already dark and gritty and grim, shifting into even a darker tone when you would just traverse the Deep Roads and you would just not even see a Darkspawn, but you would see what they left behind. You would see the corpses strewn about, the disemboweled dwarves that had been dragged through the Deep Roads to feed the Broodmothers, and then deeper and deeper still, just seeing how they had corrupted and destroyed the ruins of Dwarven kingdoms they had razed to the ground, and just the sheer amount of numbers of them I remember that one scene of you looking down into the deep roads, deep, deep, deep down, and just seeing a sea of Darkspawn. And that's when you realize that the Blight itself is so much more terrifying than you thought, because you start the game and it's been centuries since the last Blight, and no one alive really remembers what a Blight entails anymore. They don't even know what a Darkspawn might look like because it's been so long. They are the staff of legends, and then you as the Grey Warden, you have to face them. You have to go into the lion's den, and that's when you realize the world might end if you don't do something about it. And that is Dragon Age Origins. That is Dragon Age. That is its essence. And this is what I wanna keep with me. This is what I wanna hold near and dear to my chest and cradle and cherish, because I refuse to let Veilguard sour these memories, these childhood memories for me. So through this series that I am planning to make of just me explaining to you the lore of Dragon Age as I remember it, and in very, very simple terms, because let's be fucking honest with each other, we're all dumb here, but I just wanna preserve this. I wanna preserve Dragon Age as it was meant to be experienced. And I hope that you enjoy it. I hope that if you like Dragon Age, you can sit down and maybe have a little refresh, dip your toes into the lore with me, and maybe rekindle that love that we all have for this franchise. And if you're new to it, maybe this will make you interested into trying Dragon Age Origins and Awakening, which I really recommend. I will even allow you to play Dragon Age 2 and Inquisition. And that's it, because there's no more games after Inquisition. That's me trying to brainwash you into forgetting Veilguard ever happened. Is it working? Tell me in the comments. But that's gonna be all. Thank you so much for sticking with me through my very incohesive ramblings. I do know that I am a mess, but I enjoy these little videos where I just turn my mic on and just talk into it about things that I love. So expect more videos like this. I love you guys. See you in the next one.